Okay, well, it's 10:02, our usual Jewish Standard Time start. Let's see, we got a decent turnout for a holiday week. So thanks everybody for joining. Let's see, a couple people just popped in. So not a ton for me this week, other than to tell you all what fun it is to sit in the Federation with a camera crew with masks on and a teleprompter. And hopefully you all have had a chance to see our campaign kickoff video, the 6:30 at 6:30 that we did the other night. Truly was fun. It was first time doing a Facebook Live where it was actually live. You know, a lot of the Facebook Live stuff these days is completely pre-recorded, but is Facebook Live. And this was, you know, down to knowing that we needed to start at 6:29 and 35 seconds because there's a 25-second delay and, you know, dealing with internet processing and stuff. So it was good. I truly think that based on the feedback that I know I've gotten and others have gotten, one person in particular said to me, this video is going to make my solicitations easier. And so if you haven't seen it, I hope you'll watch it. It is on YouTube and it's on the Federation's Facebook page. I hope that you'll share it because I think it helps all of us. It helps the Federation raise the resources necessary to deploy to the community because that's really what we're here for. And it, with the examples given, whether it be for the NORC or for security or the employment services, you know, it tells the story in a human person-to-person way about what we're doing and why. And so I hope that when the time is right and when you think appropriate, that you will make sure that everyone you know takes the 26 minutes necessary, and they can skip through the commercials if they want, to go ahead and look through that. Our marketing staff put this together, Rick and Nancy and the team, in under 30 days from ideation to execution. And from what I understand, for those that watched it, because I couldn't watch it while I was in it, so to speak, that it went off really well. So I just want to thank everybody who was on the video and everybody who participated in it, and all the crew was great and our marketing team was great. And I hope that as a community, you're proud of what it says about who our community is and what we're doing. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody's got any for me. All right, hearing and seeing none in the chat, I will turn it over to Brian.
Thanks. Is Scott. David Witten's going to join us in just a couple minutes. He has some updates. He's running late on another call. He'll come back. But also, Scott, I know that some resources were released this week, and just wanted to give you a chance to talk about whatever is going on in the world right now.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. So this week, our Jewish Federations of North America friends released a Back to Business guide, which is a community guide for reopening facilities and resuming operations in the age of COVID-19. This is an extremely comprehensive guide, and I realize that it comes somewhat after many of us have developed guidelines and actual plans for resumption of operations. But, you know, I think it's a valuable document. It's very comprehensive. It has a lot of information on a lot of different areas, including maybe some areas that you hadn't thought about in terms of what might be challenges you face in your resumption of operations. So it's absolutely worth a read. It's absolutely worth looking through, comparing it to your existing plan, whether you're functional or getting ready to become functional, again, at your facilities. Everybody's been functional from home and what have you, but if you're planning on resuming operations at your facilities, it is a good comprehensive overview. It is not designed to be your plan. They state that specifically in there. It's designed to give you ideas to develop your plan. And of course, you can still utilize Federation's resumption of operations plan as a template as well. But I will be hitting the send button on an email going out to my community security liaison list as soon as I get off this Zoom. And so be looking for that document. If for some reason you don't receive it through your CSL, then reach out to me directly and I will send it to you directly.
And I would at this point say too, if you guys are willing, we can start a library of your resumption plans as well. And some of your organizations may have multiple portions to that. Preschool may have a resumption plan. The organization, broader organization, may have a different one. People have been asking if you're willing to share those. I think we can make those available to everyone. Just put them someplace where you can look through them all in order to see the different kinds of plans that are out there and how they're structured. And if you either want to look and get ideas from everyone else or haven't really started to put yours together, we can probably help provide that to everyone. Scott, there's also been some other stuff going on in the community the past week or so. Can you touch for a minute or two on what you've been seeing and the things that we should be aware of, or yeah.
So absolutely, Brian. So we have had some unfortunate incidents and circumstances regarding various protests. Actually, tomorrow, Friday, at Keener Plaza, there is a day of rage. It is a protest against the expansion and occupation by Israel. It's going to be a nationwide thing, and we have a St. Louis based one now. This past week, we had the protest at the St. Louis statue, also a connectivity to the Jewish community because of the comments being made about the individual who the statue is of, King Louis IX, being anti-Semitic and being someone that Adolf Hitler looked to for some guidance in terms of the way that he would eventually deal with the Jews. So there are just a few things out there that lend themselves to being a concern for our community. And, as with anything, of course, it's anybody's right to attend these events, whether pro or against. And that is your right as an American. But I, as your community security director, urge you that if you do choose to do these things, that you do recognize that they don't always remain peaceful, and that there are potential dangers at these things, and you should be continuously practicing your situational awareness. Make sure that you have a way out, that if things don't go the way that they are supposed to originally have gone, that you've given yourself and your family a way out of the circumstances that you have the ability to remove quickly from the crowd, and that you can then disperse to a safe location. That is really key in these, just to be constantly aware of, as things elevate and escalate, that you're maybe making yourself a little bit less close to the locations where the elevation is occurring and the escalation is occurring. So there are a lot of things going on. We don't see a tremendous decline in this. If anything, activity is remaining at a constant. The third incident that we had in our community occurred actually right next door to CRC, and that one is now a national event with two St. Louisans wielding firearms in the presence of a protest. So as you can see, things can escalate and get out of hand very quickly. So I just urge everyone to remind everyone they know, if they are planning on attending any of these types of events, that these events can take a turn, and that they are practicing security and safety for themselves and their family the entire time that they're at the event. And then also on this coming holiday weekend, I just urge everybody to use common sense and be safe in terms of both events that you might plan on attending, as well as personal firework handling. Fireworks can be very, very dangerous. Just be careful out there.
Thanks, Scott. Does anybody have any questions for Scott? Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
Hi, Scott. So my question is, now that masks are mandatory everywhere in the city and county as of 7 a.m. tomorrow, how are you advising that we handle situations where people may come into our building or our facilities and not wear one? Because we don't want to put our staff in the position of having to be the mask police and confront people on the one hand. On the other hand, we're trying to protect everybody. I mean, we had an incident this week in our resale shop and we had to call the police about it. And so I didn't know if there were any guidelines or thoughts about how to handle the people that just say, I'm not wearing it and I'm coming in and you can't stop me kind of stuff.
Ellen, that's a very good question, and many retailers have been dealing with that now for about the last month or so. Many of the big box stores have a policy. I think that it's twofold. I think that in terms of getting the message out as to what we're trying to accomplish, signage seems to be the most effective way to really let people know. And get creative with it. I've seen some creative signage where it's just really draws your attention. It's almost impossible to miss it as you're entering a building, whether it's the colors that they're using or the way that they use giant arrows to point to it, like, hey, look at this, that type of thing. And you just have to share that message. In terms of the enforcement, we have to remember that these things are guidelines. We're urging a public to be cooperative. You have to make that decision, in terms of your own location, but you do have the right to make that decision. And you do have a right to say, look, for the good of all, we are choosing to, ensure that this process occurs. And that's pre the mandatory or the new directive. You had that right before. And you also have a right to contact the police. I would use every effort. It sounds like you had one of those that I've seen many, many times now, that all efforts just were to no avail. But I would continue to use all efforts of reason and attempts to gain cooperation with these individuals. And the biggest thing is, just please, we understand you might have some personal affront, to this process, but it is our process. It is our policy. And, please understand that we're trying to protect a larger group. And in protecting that larger group, we have to ask for sacrifices from each individual. And this is just a tiny sacrifice, to protect the larger masses. And then if it gets past that, I think you did what you would eventually have to do with one of those folks and ask for some assistance. I would not let my staff be the ones to attempt any sort of building removal or escorts. It's just asking for trouble from the for the organization, because just so you know, it's not probably going to be a surprise to you, Ellen, or maybe anybody else on this call, but there are actually people who are purposely doing this for the confrontation. That it's become such a polarizing political situation in terms of COVID-19, and it's almost been weaponized politically. And this idea that, certain people aren't wearing a mask, I'm going to do what they're doing, and I'm going to do, that in your store, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Well, that's false, because there is. We can keep you from coming in our locations. But just keep that in mind too, that many people are waiting for you to do the wrong thing. So I think, it's always best practice to be as kind and cordial and as explanatory as possible when it comes to why you're doing something. As much signage as possible to give a person notice, like, well, I didn't see anything. Sir, it's impossible, ma'am, it's impossible to miss, the signage that we have up. I mean, we made it fun on purpose, because we want you to enjoy the experience, but we also want you to help us keep everyone safe.
No, I appreciate that, Scott. I mean, in this particular instance, he wore a mask into the building because he knew he needed it to get in the door and then took it off
Well,
as
and
a statement. And we don't
Yeah.
have security. We don't have full-time security in our building like
Right.
some of you all do. So there was nobody to call,
Right.
other than the police. And there were a
And
lot
you-
of
and you
customers
have,
that, yeah, it's
you
different.
you actually made a great point, though, that I think goes to the idea of signage, and that is that I've noticed a couple of places that say mask required to enter, and people are using that terminology, that phrasing, to say, I know you're getting ready to show me your sign, but no.
No, but I'm going to take out the word enter, and I'm just going to
Right.
say mask required to
Mask
be in the
required,
building.
in
because
this facility.
We
period,
actually
because-
used the language you just said, and now I realize that we got to change it.
Yeah.
In all our
And
signs.
that's what I was going to say, is that I've noticed several places that are just using, it's like a game for some people. They revert to high school or junior high in terms of the fact that, oh, well, you said I had to have a mask to enter. You didn't say I had to have one the whole time I was in here. So, we just have to be wary of people that are attempting to, use those little things to defeat our purpose. And, I think if we just make sure that we say required in this building at all times, that, we defeat their argument.
Thanks, Scott. All right. Are there other questions people have about safety and security, or if this would be the place if people have thoughts or questions about the protest or the not so quickly catching on petition to change the name of St. Louis because of these things? Does anybody have any perspective or thoughts or any questions that they wanted to ask about any of the civil unrest related items that are going on? All right. Okay. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Scott. And as Nikki said, it would be great to have that repository if you want to forward, and we will certainly put it in the notes as well. And we'll try and collect people's reopening documents, and we will find a place to put them up where people can access them and take a look to use as resources for each other. David Witten has joined us, and David, I wanted to give you the opportunity to update people on a couple of things that are going on right now. Thanks for being here.
Sure. Sorry I'm late. So there's been a bunch of activity in Jefferson City. We expect a lot of activity at the federal level right after the July 4th recess on a fourth bill. Governor put out his budget. Not surprisingly, $450 million worth of withholds were made. A lot of that is kind of across the board in the budget. There's a lot of mileage things and things like that. But there's also some pretty deep cuts that have been made to education, which have been carried over from 2020, and social services and human services. So it's something we're still diving into a little bit. We've got some real concerns about AAA cuts and some other things. There was about $11 million in vetoes that were done, most of which won't touch our programs, which is a positive. But I think we're moving into a realm now of, okay, we have the worst case scenario in the budget for 2021, and then we have to work from there. And it is my sense that we're going to end up with another COVID-related bill, even with the unemployment numbers that were done this morning. It'll be interesting to see what the Republican.
Hey, David. Hey, David, this is Don. I think some people might be having trouble hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Not sure why. Can you hear me now?
You seem muted to me, but that's, I know, I think Nikki is as well, so. I don't know if anybody else. Sorry.
I am unmuted on my phone, but I may be muted on my my computer, but I may be muted by the moderator. Is that possible?
No, we can hear you. I think what he's saying is that it's not as loud or as clear as it usually.
Is this better? I'm closer to the microphone.
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry, technology. It's great stuff when it works. So I think the governor's done all of his withholds, all of his budget work. He has signaled that that's the worst that's going to happen in 2021. We hope that's true. We expect Congress to come back after the 4th of July recess and start working on a fourth COVID package. Even with the good unemployment numbers that came out this morning, we still expect that Congress is going to want to do something. As you're probably aware, the Democratic House has passed a couple of bills already. We do not think that they will continue with the $600 extra a week in unemployment comp. That's really important for service providers that are working with folks that have lost their jobs or have been laid off. There might be something in there about kind of a going back to work incentive. And with kind of the virus continuing to spike, there is going to be a serious concern about unemployment. Now it's, I guess the rating was 11 point something percent this morning. I think there's a lot of folks that think over the next 30 and 60 days, that number is going to go back up again because people are going to start closing or laying off or furloughing. That certainly could happen. Obviously, the political landscape is really dicey for Republicans right now. You just have to look at polling numbers from anybody's polls to see that. And so that leads me to believe that the Republican Senate will put some money into a bill in the fourth package, and the president will sign it, even though he will probably be kicking and screaming to do it. That might take some attention off of what's going on in terms of kind of all the changing things and all the battles that are happening now around Russia and everything else. So I do expect the Republican Congress to flee to the safe ground of, helping the American people through the pandemic. So that's kind of where we are right now. Governor's still working on signing some bills. I expect us to have a special session in the middle of August to deal with things like COVID liability for healthcare workers, may deal with some things that he's vetoing. There is very light conversation about doing something on Wayfair, although I don't think they'll do anything unless there's a complete deal. And we're having a tremendous amount of kind of movement in terms of primary elections and things that are happening. The ground is really shaky in general. Oklahoma, by a margin of less than 1 point, passed Medicaid expansion on Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday, it's Thursday today, by 7,000 votes. That's on our ballot. Basically the same language is on our ballot here August 4th. And so you're going to see, I think we saw $3 million worth of ad buys from the proponents this morning be registered, and you'll see some opponents doing ad buys. And the whole goal will be to get to people before they vote absentee, because that's what carried it over the line in Oklahoma. So we could be in a whole new world here in just another month or so.
Any questions or thoughts? Ellen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, short of expand Medicaid in Missouri, please, please, please. That's my new mask. David, do we anticipate that our legislature will go into special session in September?
So I actually think there's a good chance we'll go into special session in August, in the middle of August. That would be the earliest date. And that right now, what will be on the agenda if they were to go in August. And of course, like, special session's a real crapshoot because the governor is pretty much in charge and center stage of that because he makes all the calls. And so he's going to want to know that whatever the call is has got a really good chance of being successful because he doesn't want to call a special session and lose. So I think COVID liability for healthcare workers is an issue that folks are talking about that the governor probably will call. The feds are doing the same thing, but whatever the feds do at that level doesn't necessarily cover state courts. So I think if there's a call in the middle of August, that will be in there. Depending on what the feds do in terms of funding streams, if there's a need to have a supplemental appropriations budget that early, that will likely be in the call, but I actually don't think they really need to do anything because the level of flexibility the executive branch has right now to utilize federal funds is really high based on the budget language. So So I'm not overly worried about that. Obviously, we just had a Supreme Court decision, as everybody's aware, striking down some language in House Bill 11 related to Planned Parenthood. I'm already getting questions from hospitals that are refusing to sign the attestations anyway, that are, now what do we have to do? I don't know what he'll do on that. That's a really interesting question. It's possible to kind of juice up the base. The legislature will want to do something in a special on that issue and pass it legislatively or do something that gets around the court. Remember, the court ruling didn't say you couldn't do it. The court ruling said you couldn't do it this way, essentially. And so I think that's important. Yeah, that's the deal. And then if we don't have one in August, I do expect him to have one in September, which will be concurrent with veto session.
And you may not know the answer to this, but if they have it, are they going to allow the public in the building?
So it's assuming that they don't change the protocols that they had in place at the end of session, and even this week when they had a hearing in the chamber on Medicaid and tax credits, I do expect the public to be permitted in the building. It'll be interesting to see what they do about gatherings, because as you well know, many of our friends on the Republican majority don't believe that we should be limiting people in this environment and forcing masks and all these other things. And so I don't know how they do on that. I'm sure there will be a group of folks that are trying to find some crafty way to shut down protests. I think it'll be really hard for them to do. Now, what they will do is make it tough to get in the Capitol. I do think that, but I don't know how they would do that. Cole County will not likely have a mask order in place. Boone County does. And so I don't see Cole County shutting down activity at this point. So as far as kind of being able to come into the county and being outside and with people, I don't see that as being an issue legally.
Anyone else? Anything for Scott? Oh, sorry, for David or Scott? It's fine with me.
I'm smarter than I am, so that's perfect.
Around what's going on. Obviously, things continue to evolve. I think as many of us thought, this is not a straightforward process like driving up a mountain and then back down. We're going to be going up and down a couple of times. Certainly over this holiday weekend too, just be aware, be safe. Thanks, David.
You bet.
The only other, I just had one other thing and then we can open it up, and that is I want to remind everybody that on August 3rd, we are going to be having an extended community leadership discussion. We are going to be bringing in Nanette Fridman, who is a nationally known leadership coach. She's going to help us explore successful change management strategies during a COVID-altered world. The whole idea of this is that this is a first step of us as a community looking at and talking about what change management is and what it can mean. Our intention is to somehow either subsidized or maybe free, provide them the opportunity for your organization to meet with Nanette individually and have a coaching session on what the big or really meaty issues your organization is dealing with as a result of this. We may decide to continue with her, to continue through with those discussions, but we will also be having some small group or large group discussions around issues that have come up both through the needs assessment that many of you have done through community impact and the results of both the August 3rd conversation and the conversation that organizations have with Nanette over the coming months as certain issues might rise to the top or coalesce, or she sees and talks to multiple organizations that are dealing with some of the same kinds of issues. We're prepared to step forward and help provide forums for addressing those if they are more than a single organization kind of issue. And those can be really simple things like the need, as we've already heard, for support and help with fundraising, for example, to more complicated things that we can't even begin to think about right now, but will come out of the conversations that happen. The idea here is for us as a community of leadership to be able to take a little bit of time and recognize the fact that the world is altered. Whatever happens on the other side of this crisis, things are going to look a little different. And for us to be able to be prepared, to be able to accept and lean into those changes, and for us as a community to be able to thoughtfully and in a purposeful way deal with whatever changes individual institutions or the community at large needs to make adjustments or changes, whatever those might be, and continue to make sure that we're supporting a vibrant Jewish community on the other side of this. So don't really know what that might look like. I invite you all to be a part of it with us so that collectively we can make sure that the St. Louis Jewish community continues for another 150 years or whatever it might be. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, and just encourage you all to take advantage of Nanette in your organization, to have her come in and have a conversation with either you and your professional leadership team, you and your board or executive, whatever it is, and really be open about the kinds of challenges you're having. And she's got a lot of experience with a lot of organizations, mostly non-Jewish, but certainly Jewish as well, that are going through difficult discussions and helping them kind of chart a path forward. This is not something that most of us have ever had to deal with. It is something that she deals with regularly, and just having an individual with experience to help provide a perspective and different resources can be really, really helpful and help it feel a little less scary, because change is scary, as we all consider and look at how we operate and what we do and how we do it, and thinking about how that might need to change due to what's going on out there. So I encourage all of you to invite your leadership, whoever you think is appropriate, and to participate in the conversation, and then avail yourself of whatever kinds of resources we're able to help make happen on the other side of this. If there are any questions or thoughts or comments, please, now's around that. Now's the time, and then we can just open it up if anybody has anything that they want to talk about. Anything about the change management stuff. All right. So what else is going on? Are there things out there that people are seeing or hearing, or that they want to bring up or share with the group? Okay.
All right then. Well, I think that's all we had for the agenda today. I'll drag this out for a minute in case somebody thinks of something. But if not, I just want to say have a good early Shabbat and a good holiday weekend. And if in the interim something comes up, we'll be in touch. Or if you hear of something, always reach out to Brian or me or any member of the staff, and share that video widely if you are so inclined. And let's see if we can't raise the resources needed to keep this community rolling through this pandemic and get through to the other side. So with that, if nobody's got anything else, I'm looking at the chat. Don't see anything. All right, well, great seeing everybody, and look forward to seeing you all next week.